In March 2025, a new YouGov poll survey asked Americans about the Middle Ages. Here's what they found. 48% described it as dark, 54% said violent, and only 2% claimed they actually know much about the period. So here's the question, were the Dark Ages really dark? One side dismisses this as Hollywood myth, the other insists the intellectual collapse after Rome's fall was real. Libraries burned, literacy vanished, Europe went dark for 500 years. I went to the modern academic sources, Chris Wickham's Medieval Europe, quantitative manuscript counts from Buring and Van Zanden, Micah de Young's work on the Carolingians. They're analyzing the actual manuscript production data, the legal codes from successor kingdoms, and the charter documents that ordinary people used for property transactions. When you examine the evidence, both extremes oversimplify what actually happened. And here's why this matters. The poll shows that 51% of Americans say that they learn medieval history from movies, not historians. That gap between popular belief and academic reality, that's what I'm trying to fix. Before we can talk about whether literacy collapsed, we need to ask how high were we to begin with? The assumption is always that classical Rome was this intellectual utopia. Everyone's reading Virgil, universal education, scroll libraries on every corner. Reading from the sources on ancient literacy, papyrus was prohibitively expensive, unless you were a wealthy government or maybe a temple running your entire operation on written documents just wasn't feasible. Even at the peak, Athenian democracy in the 4th century BCE, here's what the evidence shows. Citizens serving on juries got a little ticket with their name on it. You had to be able to read your own name, maybe the date, but not a complex legal decree. The assembly functioned perfectly well without every member reading and writing complex prose. Because what did it rely on? Oral culture, literary texts, philosophy, poetry, they were mainly disseminated orally. You didn't read Plato yourself, you went to a performance or a public reading. And here's the critical distinction that reframes the entire Dark Ages argument. The massive use of writing by the government does not equal universal individual literacy. Rome's writing served the state, not ordinary citizens. Rome was already operating on a highly stratified system where writing served the state and a wealthy elite. Most knowledge was still shared orally. So, when the Western Roman Empire transitions in the 5th century, it's not falling from some 90% literate utopia. It's transitioning from a system where literacy was already specialized, already limited, and already expensive. So, if the state collapses, where does the writing go? The traditional story demands chaos here. Barbarians sack Rome, the lights go out, all sophisticated government just ends. But the sources reveal a story of institutional adaptation. Visigothic Spain, far from chaos, they maintained Roman governmental style with careful attention to legal form. And here's the litmus test for any functioning state. Taxes. The Visigoths kept tax collection functional. That's the institutional hallmark of a surviving, structured state. Lombard Italy operated on a different model, but equally pragmatic. The main function of their assemblies was law and justice. Appeals went all the way up to the capital at Pavia. And their laws show how sophisticated this was. King Liutprand's legislation includes this incredibly specific law. The penalty for a man who steals a woman's clothes while she's bathing in a river, forcing her to walk home naked. His full weregild, the blood price paid for killing someone, the highest possible fine, the same as if you would killed the person. What does that tell us? The law is designed to prevent blood revenge. By setting the highest penalty, the king stops the victim's family from seeking violent retaliation, which would spiral into clan warfare. This is tight, functional government aimed at social cohesion. The Franks found it so impressive they borrowed these exact legal procedures. Many of these barbarian leaders were already Romanized, bilingual. They adopted every functional element of Roman administrative systems. They weren't hordes wiping the slate clean. They were continuing Roman governance under new management. But the successor kingdoms just built the foundation. The Carolingians provided the ambition. Under Charlemagne, learning and the written word went from being a functional tool for administrators to being a fundamental pillar of state identity. His logic was simple. If his priests couldn't read the liturgy or scripture accurately, how could his people possibly be saved? The sources define his aim at one key Latin word, correctio, correction or reform, establishing a collective moral framework for the salvation of the entire Frankish people. And that intellectual drive immediately translates into massive expansion of administration. Literacy became essential for the royal bureaucracy, for maintaining law, for social advancement. The material output is astonishing. Large-scale production of law books, capitularies, royal decrees covering everything from church discipline to military organization to judicial procedures. And we can quantify this. Buring and Van Zanden analyzed manuscript production across Europe. In the 6th and 7th centuries, the period that most people associate with the Dark Ages, there were 24,191 manuscripts produced. In the 8th and 9th centuries under the Carolingians, 245,444 manuscripts. That's a 915% increase. The lights didn't go out, they got brighter. Think about the logistics. Charlemagne's court was huge and often itinerant, moving around. How did they organize moving hundreds, maybe thousands of people without destroying local communities they landed on? Through written notice. And then there's the diplomacy. The sheer geographic scope completely refutes any idea of a dark, isolated Western Europe. Charlemagne was receiving and sending legates to Arabic rulers in Spain, to the Danes, to the Huns, and most memorably, he received legates from the Abbasid Caliph Harun al-Rashid in Persia. Gifts included an elephant and a water-powered automaton clock. The palace chapel at Aachen was built with columns carted from Rome and Ravenna. It was a physical symbol, a conscious effort to link this new Frankish power directly to the classical imperial Roman past. Court poetry celebrated Aachen as the new Athens. The revival was completely intentional. And crucially, and this is a huge point against the Dark Ages myth, this literacy wasn't just for clergy. Einhard, a layman from a minor aristocratic family, he rose to immense influence solely because of his intellectual skill. He was an advisor, he managed huge building projects and later wrote the seminal biography of Charlemagne. His entire career was built on his written intellectual abilities. And then there's Dhuoda, the wife of aristocrat Bernard of Septimania. She wrote a detailed handbook for her son William, filled with advice drawn from Christian Latin literature, from patristic sources. The complexity and the sheer range of literature she synthesizes, it strongly suggests she was fully educated, probably at Aachen itself, which proves high-level Latin literacy existed among the Carolingian aristocratic laity for both men and women. After Charlemagne dies, the intellectual systems he created didn't vanish, they diffused. Monasteries like St. Gall provided what the sources call an itinerant notarial service. Scribes didn't just stay writing prayer books, they traveled out into surrounding communities to provide professional written documentation services to non-monastic people. Charters for gifts, sales, exchanges of property, high-stakes transactions that cemented who owned what land. And the procedure shows how important the document had become. Witnesses in these transactions had to confirm they saw the document being written. Their hands were physically placed on the completed document. It's a societal affirmation that the written word now holds the ultimate legal authority. The written document had become essential for ordinary life. So, let's be clear about what the evidence actually shows. 1. Classical Rome wasn't universally literate. It was already a highly stratified system where writing served elite functions and most knowledge was shared orally. 2. Successor kingdoms maintained sophisticated legal and administrative systems. They kept taxes, wrote complex laws, and continued Roman governance. 3. The Carolingians launched a deliberate, centrally driven cultural revolution. They standardized script, produced massive legal codes, trained lay elites in Latin literacy, and used writing to guarantee justice. Knowledge definitely became concentrated, centered around monasteries, cathedrals, and royal courts, but it was developed strategically to build new Christian states with sophisticated legal structures. The term Dark Ages fundamentally fails to capture that reality. If this changed how you think about the Middle Ages, please subscribe. There's more myth-busting coming.